Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Lesson 6 is Ra. Ra will sometimes be pronounced with full mouth and sometimes with empty mouth. And in this lesson, we'll discuss when will it be pronounced full mouth and when will it be pronounced empty mouth. There are three types of Ra. Ra mutaharrik. Remember we discussed earlier, a mutaharrik is a letter with a haraka. So if Ra has a fathatain or fatha or a dhammatain or dhamma, then it will be pronounced with full mouth. If it has a kasratain or kasra, then it will be pronounced with empty mouth. This rule also apply if there is a tajdeed on the ra. This ra has a fatha, so it will be pronounced with full mouth. ربك. This has a tajdeed, however, it also has a fatha, so حرم. حرم الله. This ra has a kasratain. Remember, kasra and kasratain will be pronounced empty mouth if the ra has them. So this is pronounced min shaddin, ri. So if I were to pronounce ra full mouth in this example, it would sound like min sharri, which is wrong. Listen to the difference. Sharri is full mouth. Shadri is empty mouth. Min shadri. The next example, this one has a dhamma, this one has a dhammatain. Both of them full mouth. Sururun. This ra has a kasra, so empty mouth. Ri, not re. It's not re, it's ri. You kind of have to smile a bit to widen your mouth. Ri, rizqan. The second type of ra is if ra sakin has a fatha or a dhamma before it, then it will be full mouth. This is a ra sakin, and before it there's a fatha, so it will be pronounced full mouth. Like أرسل, أقررنا, ترجعون, واذكر. Ra sakin has a dhamma before it. Ra sakin has a dhamma before it. Ra sakin has a fatha before it. أقررنا, ترجعون, واذكر. If it has a kasra before it, then it will be empty mouth, with exceptions which we'll discuss later. So generally it will be empty mouth. So this ra sakin has a kasra before it. So وكفر عنا, not وكفر. وكفر عنا. يستغفر لكم. This ra has a kasra before it. So يستغفر لكم. Now the exceptions. So there are three conditions to pronounce the ra sakin with empty mouth. The ra sakin and kasra must be in the same word. So here, wakafir, same word. Yastawfir, same word. Here we have two examples where they are not in the same word. So is one word, irtabu is a second word. Amir, this technically according to this rule it will be pronounced empty mouth. However, since it's in separate words, it will be pronounced with full mouth. So Amir tabu. Rabbirji'un, not Rabbir. Rabbirji'un. The second condition is if the ra sakin must also have a permanent kasra before it, kasratul asli. We won't go too deep into what a kasratul asli is, but essentially I believe these are the two examples. If they come, if it has a temporary kasra, then it will be full mouth. So this kasra is not permanent, it's a temporary one. So it will be pronounced irji'u or irji'i, not irji'u. It won't be pronounced empty mouth because this is a temporary kasra. The third condition is the ra sakin should not have any of the 7 full mouth letters after it. Remember the acronym for full mouth letters were khussa daghatin qid, and there are only 4 words in the Quran where this happens. So this is a ra sakin, and after it there's a qaf, so it won't be pronounced firqatin but firqatin. This is a sad, so it should be pronounced mir sad. However, since there's a full mouth letter, it will be pronounced mirsad, irsadan, qirtasin. And the third type of ra is if the ra sakin has another sakin before it, and before that there's a fatha or dhamma. What does that mean? So if you were to stop, this would become a sakin, which we'll discuss this last chapter, waqf wal asr. So this ra becomes a sakin, and before that there's also a sakin. So to figure out if you are going to pronounce this ra full mouth or empty mouth, you have to look at the letter before that. So this ayn has a fatha, so this will be pronounced full mouth. If it has a fatha or a dhamma, like here, then it will be full mouth. If it has a kasra, then empty mouth, like over here. Let's go through the examples. بكم العسر لفي خسر والفجر والعصر. And if it has a kasra before it, then it will be read with empty mouth. ولا بكر حجر حجر ولا بكر. And the next lesson is the lambs of Allah. If the lambs of Allah have a fatha or a dhamma before it, then it will be read with full mouth. If it has a kasra before it, an empty mouth, very similar to the rule of ra. So this is the lamb of Allah, the one in the middle, and there's a kasra before it, so this will be pronounced balillah. And here, before the lamb of Allah, so this specific word applies to Allah, and this is also Allah, it also applies to Allahumma. There's a dhamma before it, so wattaqullah indallah. However, this is a kasra, so qulillah. So the difference is la and la. qulillahumma وإذ قالوا اللهم سبحانك اللهم. Again, empty mouth will be pronounced balillah, and this is pronounced wattaqullah. Lesson 8 is qalqala. The closest meaning of qalqala is an echoing sound. There are 5 letters of qalqala, and when these letters are sakin due to a sukun or due to waqf, which we'll learn in the lesson 9, the next lesson, then it will be pronounced with qalqala. Okay, let's discuss what a qalqala is. Essentially, qalqala is any of the letters that you pronounce. It's 2 parts of your mouth or throat meeting that pronounces a sound. So when qalqala happens, those 2 parts will collide very hard and then separate immediately, and it will create an echoing sound. So for example, خلقنا. So if I were not making qalqala, then it would sound like خلقنا خلقنا. However, I am making qalqala, so you will hear a little bounce or an echo. خلقنا خلقنا. But at the same time, make sure you don't go too extreme and turn it into a fatha. Remember, that was the 5th major mistake that we learned all the way in lesson 1. Don't make it خلقنا خلقنا. So the correct qalqala would be خلقنا. Same with this. ولقد ولقد أبصارهم أبصارهم. Not absar, that's you made no echoing sound. أبصارهم, and do not go too extreme. أبصارهم it's not aba, it's أبصارهم. The acronym to remember the letters of qalqala is قطب جد. So there are 5. قطب جد. And lesson 9, the last lesson, is waqf. So what is waqf? The meaning of waqf is to stop or pause. Waqf is always made at the last letter of a word. You cannot stop in the middle of a word. To make waqf, change the last letter into a sakin, with some exceptions, and stop your voice, breath, and have the intention of continuing after you stop. So the general rule is change the last letter into a sakin. What does that mean? So there are 4 rules. If the last letter of the word has any haraka other than fathatain, standing fatha, and the letters of mad, then it will turn into a sakin when stopping on the word. So there are 7 in total. So if there's a dhammatain, if there's a kasratain, if there's a standing kasra, if there's a upside down dhamma, if there's a fatha, kasra, or dhamma. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If there are these 7, then it will just be changed into a sakin. So this example, if I were to continue, it would be as-sadiquna. This is a fatha, and if I intend on stopping here, then I would change this into a sakin. As-sadiqun. Dhammatain is one of the seven. Mubin. Instead of mubinun, since I intend on pausing here, I would say mubin. And same thing here. Al-khabir. Second, so if the last letter of the word has fathatain, then one of the fathas will drop and become alif madda. So it will be stretched for 1.5 seconds when stopping on it. So there's a fathatain. You will notice that the rule of if any time you see fathatain, there will usually be alif or a ya. There will be a vowel after it. So one of them will drop and you will stretch it, because if you drop one of the fathas, then there's only one fatha, and if there's a fatha before an alif, then it's alif madda. So this will be pronounced, instead of raghaban, if you intend on stopping, it will be raghaba, abada, huda. Instead of hudan, it's huda. Now there are two types of ta in the Quran. There's the long ta, which is the normal ta you saw back in the lesson of makhraj, and there's a round ta, this ta. If you stop on the long ta, it will remain a ta, but if you stop on a round ta, it will become a ha sakin. See, this ta will become a ha sakin. For example, if I did not intend of stopping, it will sound like wa'iyatun, khawiyatun. But if I intend on stopping, it would become a ha with a sakin, so it will be pronounced wa'iyah, khawiyah, wa'iyah, khawiyah. And lastly, if you stop on a letter of mud, then it remains and you stretch it normally how you would. So there's a standing kasra here, so it's la yastahyi. There's a waw madda here, and if you intend on stopping, it would still sound like tushriku, tushriku. And lastly, the last note, if the last letter of a word already has a sakin, then you don't have to do anything. This has a sakin already, so you just leave it. Alaykum wa laqad. And that is the end of the curriculum. So now we've covered the theory of the beginning, I guess, an intro to Tajweed, but we strongly recommend that you practice. First, memorize all the rules and different letters that you have to know. For example, the letters of the throat, the letters of ikhfa, ghunna, and so on. Memorize them, and then when you come to practice, then inshallah you'll be able to recall all the rules, and it'll be much easier for you to put the theory into practice.